Hello, and welcome to the Economic Future of the Coachella Valley, a webinar series featuring leaders and experts from a cross-section of the Coachella Valley's most critical industries. In today's webinar, we will explore the state of retail and restaurants in the Coachella Valley, from the impacts on the sales and employees to the new world of risk reduction protocols, training, and enforcement. Will customers come back, and how will their experience change? To discuss these critical questions, we have a distinguished panel starting with Patrick Klein, General Manager of the Gardens on El Paseo. Then we will talk with Tara Lazar, founder of F10 Creative, and then we will speak with Michael Braun, President of Grit Development. Thank you all for joining us today. Patrick, let's get started with you. How would you categorize the pandemic's impact on the Gardens on El Paseo in terms of visitation, staff cuts, and revenue?
It's a tough question to sum up in brief. It's been difficult, to say the least. 2020 has been a very strange and unusual trip. Our shopping center was closed down for operations on March 19th, and things pretty much stood at a standstill until we reopened on May 26th. During that period of time and extending beyond when we did reopen under limited capacity and under certain restrictions, large amounts of workforces were either furloughed or released in some instances. And to this date, as we continue to progress into a more normalized operational business, we're only slowly bringing back our workforce to accommodate the demand that we're seeing out there, which, mind you, is with every day that we get closer to season, we're seeing more and more life out there.
How have the stores been impacted by their ability to bring in new revenue and inventory to their stores?
So with inventory, for most of our retailers, it's been more of a strategy of trying to clear out last season's inventory. It sat on the shelves or in the back storage rooms of the spaces while they were shuttered and closed for business. And so clearing out last season's inventory, supply chains have been somewhat restricted, but not to the extent that some would imagine. And, there is some concern for the outlook of holiday and whether inventory will be readily available and shipped timely by the couriers that they so frequently use, UPSs, DHLs, FedExes, and the like. Will they be able to meet the demands of the retailers that are trying to accommodate what demand is out there, which we hope to be somewhere in line with what we've seen in previous holidays. That said, the other strategy that I'm seeing some of our businesses do is selling back the inventory that they had on the storage from last season, which is putting them in the position to have buying power for the new inventory that's available for the upcoming season.
So with many people going online and doing virtual shopping, how is that going to change the shopping experience, and can that replace the experience of the interactive touching and trying on clothes and being in a store?
In my opinion, I don't think there's ever going to be the elimination of a need for brick and mortar. You have to have showrooms and physical spaces available for those customers to interact with the products that they're looking to buy, and whether they're buying them at that moment that they do interact with them in the stores, or going back to their homes and then ordering them online when they decide to make that purchase at a later date. There is still that need for that physical space. That said, we're already seeing with the presence of online retail a progressive, slow yet progressive consolidation of all of the brick and mortar that was out there that so rapidly grew and expanded during the 1980s and the 90s and the early 2000s. And so while the online world has forced us to slowly consolidate, the pandemic has caused that to accelerate immensely. And so now is the time more than ever for retailers to be making sure that they're ready for that omni-channel experience and being able to really talk to their customers and interact with their customers, both from a brick and mortar and from an online standpoint. And so we've seen many of our retailers do that here at the Gardens, and that's no exception for, I think, any retailers, both locally and nationally.
How do you think that COVID-19 will change the overall shopping experience, and what can our visitors who come into the Valley expect?
So the obvious is, and said many times over that we've increased our cleaning procedures. We've changed out cleaning chemicals that we use to the strongest chemicals that can fight bacteria and viral infections. We are very now well conscious of the need for social distancing. And I think most of us as shoppers are doing that because it's the right thing to do, but not only is it the right thing to do, we're being required to do it. And so as we continue to see restrictions easing a little by little here, I think we're going to end up seeing a season upon us where we're going to be finding ways to get around those social distancing efforts. In the case of restaurants, for example, today was just announced that Riverside County is going to allow for in-restaurant dining at 25% occupancy loads. So how do we, with that restriction, how do we find ways for them to maximize on other fronts, such as curbside dining, expanded patio dining? I know Palm Springs is doing a phenomenal job with what they've done over on Palm Canyon with their outdoor al fresco dining. And I know the city of Palm Desert is also working on implementing something like that for El Paseo as well. So we all have to get very creative, whether you're landlord or business owner and tenant of a retail real estate property. We're all going to have to work together to find ways to try and meet the levels of sales, business, and volumes that we've seen in normalized circumstances.
Is there anything for those who are viewing this today and listening, whether they're local or maybe coming into your community, that you can let them know measures that are put in place that would increase their comfort level to come out and shop in the stores?
Well, we're messaging to our customer what we're doing, both via our website and through social media. I know the demand is out there in the Coachella Valley. I mean, we've seen it because if you were to visit our shopping center over the course of summer, where normally you wouldn't see a soul sitting out on the patio dining in 120-degree temps, we had some of our restaurants that were almost at normal sales volumes over the summer, and this was all being done through patio dining. And so it's very clear and evident that we as people need to be out in open spaces and interacting with other people. And so I think as we slowly get back to normal, the fears and concerns from the general public will lessen and lessen.
Thank you, Patrick. Tara, it's now your turn. I know that you own several restaurants as well as a catering business in Palm Springs. Can you tell us about your restaurants?
The restaurants I own are Cheeky's, Birba, Mr. Lyons, Seymour's, Toucans, and then we have a little hotel as well called Alcazar, and our catering company is called F10.
And are the restaurants open for patio dining as well as takeout at this time?
They are all open for patio dining and as well as takeout.
So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the changes you've gone through in terms of your staffing, your menus, food packaging for takeout, and any other measures that you've taken to stay vital during the pandemic?
I would say staffing has been the most curious. I think we've had some really interesting waves from people being enthusiastic to get back to work to being fearful, and then being back to enthusiastic. And I think it's been a whole roller coaster of emotions. I think as people in my industry have all kind of mentioned, the unemployment stimulus was hard competition. If you can make almost the same amount to stay at home, it's a hard thing for employers to have to contend with. So that was an initial first difficulty. I think the second difficulty right now is keeping everyone safe and, being really preventative. So if you have even a sore throat, you can't come to work. And what does that mean for, getting someone else to fill that shift as a last minute thing? So it's been a little bit challenging. I think we've worked through it. I wouldn't say it's been a terrible thing. I think we all practice better health measures. We wash our hands more. We don't come to work if we're sick, which, before COVID, people would come to work sick all the time. And I think we're all just a little bit more responsible. So I would say that's a good upside. On the packaging and to go, I think we were moving so away from plastics and waste and, overconsumption of paper. I think that's been the most frustrating side. And just how bad our to-go programs were, I think we didn't really give it much thought. So we've really tried to change into a more experiential thing with clever new packaging and great new boxes. So if you are eating at home, it doesn't come in like this messy, terrible box and the food's all slopped, up and down the side. So we're trying to do something a little bit more curated and thoughtful. So I think the pivots have been really good for us. I'm proud of our team and, trying to find the silver lining in all of it.
So how would you say that COVID-19 has changed the dining experience, and what can our visitors expect coming into the Valley?
What's interesting for Palm Springs, and I don't know if the rest of the desert shares this, is we've gotten such a massive influx of Angelenos or LA people all through the week, and they're much younger. So one of the biggest noticeable differences for us is a later diner. So we've had to really accommodate to keep our restaurants open past 9:30, especially on the weekends, something that we never anticipated. And then on the earlier side, it's a faster turn. So people are eating quicker and they're getting out faster. They want things to be served faster. And we've kind of adjusted our service so that we can accommodate that, very rushed guest who maybe doesn't feel so comfortable lingering about. And truthfully, on the finance and economics of it, it's a big, boon for us. We get to get more people in, and shorter table times is always good for business.
So takeout has really been something that's taken over during this pandemic, and it has a plus in restaurants getting out. But do you think takeout can never really replace the plated dish?
No chance. At our restaurants, we try to be so experiential, and there's so much besides having to not clean a plate that people come to our restaurants. So I would say 2 thumbs down for all the takeout that has to happen.
Thank you, Tara. We can't wait till we can all get back to Mr. Lyons. Michael, let's turn to you. I see so many developments throughout Palm Springs. What's the status of the downtown redevelopment amidst the COVID conditions, and what are the next sections that we might see coming to life?
As you probably know, we have plans for a second hotel and a lot more residential units in the downtown core. Both uses are key in our view to continue the positive momentum for Palm Springs, and with that especially support local businesses. Because of COVID-19 and the impact on financial markets, we decided to postpone the already approved Virgin Hotel, and we're replacing that hotel on that path now with a 62 high-end condominium projects. And we're already in the city with those plans. We hope to open up that project within the next 2 years. We're big believers that Palm Springs needs a lot more permanent residents with high disposable income to support the local businesses that we have here. But more important also this way, create necessary tax revenue. It's the only way to continue to extend our season, and with that provide much more financial stability for the city.
So how are your tenants faring amidst the pandemic's restrictions?
Well, I echo the comments from my previous 2 speakers. It's a very broad question. We have about over 300 tenants in our portfolio. Essential services like grocery stores, restaurants with drive-through operations did extremely well. Those with strong internet presence did okay. And then hospitality, restaurants and gyms, which were the hardest ones, obviously were struggling and continue to struggle right now, trying to stay alive until we have worked ourselves through this crisis. The bottom line is any business that depends on social engagement had to reinvent itself in the economy where we have to stay 6 feet apart and we have to wear masks now. The good news was, as Tara mentioned, much looser government regulations that I've never seen like this helped operators to think outside the box. Parking lots were converted into outside patio space. Street closures allowed retailers and especially restaurants to branch out with their patio space. So I'm actually very positive coming this fall that a lot of people from the big cities brave to come out to Palm Springs to the whole Coachella Valley to enjoy this.
So that sort of leads to another question, is how's the pandemic affecting your ability to attract and retain tenants?
Well, we work with most of our tenants. An empty storefront is never good for the street scene. With regard to tenant demand, we actually experience quite the contrary. We get inquiries right now every day of people looking for space in Palm Springs. The problem is everybody wants to be in the downtown core in A locations. So in other words, B minus or B locations or C locations, nobody's going to rent there. Everybody wants to be in the core where all the action is happening. As Palm Springs as a destination itself, we have some assets that all of a sudden are becoming the new anchors, if you want to say so. And that is outdoor space, outdoor activity, open air centers, and then most important, we have 275 days a year of pleasant sunshine. And that's what people are craving for right now. And I believe the flight or fleeing the urban settings, meaning LA, New York, San Francisco, Portland, etc., or Seattle, and coming to destinations like Palm Springs is a trend that is not short-term, this is a long-lasting trend that we believe we'll experience over the next 3 to 5 years. In other words, I think Palm Springs is the new Fifth Avenue for retailers and restaurants. So any operator who wants to connect with their wealthy client base needs to have a presence going forward in Palm Springs.
What gives you confidence that Palm Springs, if not the entire valley, will show a measure of reliance and return to a level of vitality?
We have something that the rest of the valley doesn't have. We have a pedestrian-friendly environment. People come basically from LA or San Diego, Orange County, or other big cities. They park their car here and they never have to go back in their car. They can basically walk to downtown. They can walk uptown where Tara has all her operations, come back to downtown, go further down to Mr. Lyons. We have in the core of downtown over 7,500 hotel rooms. That creates the energy where everybody wants to be. And in the current environment, because it's outside where everybody can gather, that gives us an advantage that other destinations don't have anymore.
What, if anything, in the spike in home sales tells you about the future of our valley?
Well, the spike in home sales is something that we anticipated already in the last 2 years. Every day in America, 10,000 people turn 60. So where these baby boomers, where do they want to live? And let's not forget, with people living much healthier, 65 apparently is the new 55. So with that, what kind of destinations do they seek out? So people in big cities before probably said, hey, I want to stay in New York or LA while I pay a lot of money to live in an overpriced mini box. I have culture, great restaurants, theaters, museums available to me. All this has been wiped out overnight. So I think with that happening, and while I'm positive we're going to resolve the COVID crisis very quickly, I think the trend remains long-lasting. As I said before, more and more people want to come to Palm Springs, work from here, stay 275 days a year here in pleasant weather, and then the remaining time when it's getting too hot, we'll travel elsewhere in the world.
That's a great pitch for our valley. Thank you. Let's do a full circle now and return to you, Patrick. Then Tara, then Michael will finish up with you as to any sort of additional thoughts you want to share with our viewer about your particular industry and why people should have faith that you're continuing to push through this pandemic with bigger and better things.
Well, I think that Michael certainly hit the nail on the head with the booming residential market that we've seen over the course of the past 6 months is testament to how strong our valley is as a destination, both for tourism and for year-round. One of the other observations that has been remarkable that we've seen here at our shopping center and on El Paseo is the resilience of luxury throughout all of this. While restaurants clearly have been negatively impacted in a major way, as well as general retail, our luxury brands have been doing incredible business, and a lot of that business being driven from, as one of the other speakers pointed out, drive market. We're seeing a lot of LA contingency, San Diego, Orange County, Arizona. They're really driving in from all over to come check out our valley, and so. Yeah, I mean, we still have quite a ways to go. The other observation Michael made, which is also true for us, is we've had a lot of people inquiring for leasing space with us. And while we have had a couple of vacancies pop up at our center and on the street, there is an appetite for people to open up new businesses, and I think they're also looking at this as an opportunity to negotiate a once in a lifetime type of deal.
Tara.
I think I would second your comment about the real estate market, but also the Airbnb market. And I think people are finding that they might have left LA temporarily and they're just staying, or whatever market, it's San Diego or Pacific Northwest. And I think the quality of life in Palm Springs is unexpectedly better than they anticipated. And there's sophistication, and we have incredible services and great schools and great restaurants and great hotels and great shopping that when it all shakes out, they're not missing that much from the city. I think they can make the, trip once every 2 weeks and go see a show and maybe see a few more museums. But really, when you boil down quality of life, no traffic, beautiful weather, great restaurants, smart, interesting people, I don't think that you're missing much.
Well said. Michael, with the final word.
I echo what everybody else is saying. I think Palm Springs has a very bright future ahead of it. I might add what also people are focusing on is the new 20-minute city, where basically within walking distance you have everything that you need. And that's exactly what Palm Springs represents. And then with the electrifying of vehicles and bikes especially, that expands actually that radius even further. So even if somebody lives away 5 miles or 3 miles from the downtown core where all the services and everything is being offered, you're there within 5 minutes on your electric bike. So all this coming together, I think the COVID-19 crisis, aside the human tragedy, was a welcoming reset of society. People changed their values and reassess their lives where they want to be going forward. So the big trend that everybody is forecasting, that 80% of the world will live in big cities by 2050, I think has been reversed, and more people will discover the suburbs, but especially mini cities like the 9 cities that we have in Coachella Valley.
That's very interesting. Well, thank you all for your time and participation today. We all really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for including me.
On behalf of Palm Springs Life and Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
For Timo's Air Conditioning, the Valley is home, and customers are family. When we opened our doors in 1998, we had one mission: to serve you better every day. 2 decades later, that mission still stands. And when it comes to AC replacement, more homeowners choose Timo's over every competitor. Hard work, honest prices, and old school values. That's the Timo's way.